What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandRUSSO.com.
Welcome to the podcast. Y'all, today, Matt Stephenson with Cummings Electric is joining us. They are a big company. This isn't like an electrician down the street that's going to show up at your house. They are leaders in the B2B space when it comes to electrical work for big companies, data centers, large apartment complexes. And to listen to the way that Matt approaches ABM marketing and the relationship with sales and finding blue ocean opportunities, it's a lesson for all of us on how B2B marketing should work at its best.
Agreed. And I'm not going to even talk about the intro. What was that?
What's wrong with that? That was a delightful intro.
Welcome. Are you trying to any catchphrase? I mean, I don't understand.
I literally just welcomed people to the podcast, Michael. That should be nice. I want them to be enthusiastic. I want them to feel the energy level that I had during the interview because I was excited about talking to Matt.
I was, and Matt was great, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
Matt did not get this level of abuse that I get. I don't get it.
Yeah, no, he was great. And it's amazing because as we're doing this sequence of talking to marketing directors from different industries, different companies, it's like it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter what you're doing. There's a certain way to do things. And again, his focus leans more in on, account-based marketing, which just totally makes sense. That's what I would recommend for them. But how they do that and how they get into the trenches to find their leads and work with the sales team and make all that happen is just really smart, right?
Yeah.
And depending on another industry entirely, they may do a version of that or something completely different of that. Some people may be more digital we didn't really ask them about that, but I'm curious, like as part of their ABM process, do they do geofencing once they have a lead? Do they employ digital trends of marketing into those areas, to help beef up that level of engagement?
Yeah. That was a question I was going to ask, but my mouse died, so I was dealing with the technical difficulty.
I think you handled it well, but yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But no, all of that would have been great. And Matt is great. So y'all stick around and listen to our interview with Matt Stephenson.
To do when the day is through.
Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So I thought that maybe we would just kind of start with you letting the people know who you are and where you work so that all of my questions will make sense.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. So my name is Matt Stephenson. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Cummings Electrical. We are electrical commercial and industrial contractor based in DFW, Texas. We do work across the country.
And y'all aren't small. You're not like the electrician down the street I'm going to call when the breaker gets flipped at my house. Y'all do big, important stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, the breaker house is pretty important too. But we don't do residential work except for like high-rise multifamily.
Right.
We do commercial and industrial. We're going to work on hospitals, data centers, big office buildings, that sort of thing.
That's big stuff. My breaker is important to me. That's big stuff to everyone. So the data centers, a lot of people are talking about those and it's become kind of a hot topic. We've got one being built here in Louisiana. That's like a $10 billion project for Meta. And so I know they're popping up in lots of states. How much has that been a shift for you? How are you from a marketing standpoint positioning your team to have the opportunity to get those gigs?
Yeah, it went from a fairly small percent of our work 5 years ago to now a very large portion of our work and backlog is data centers and mission critical work. It's been a pretty rapid change with AI really driving that the last couple of years. And Texas and most of the South is a pretty prime area for these to get built. So yeah, we are getting hit up for data center work pretty consistently. As far as positioning ourselves, it's been, I would say, fairly an easy lift from the marketing side compared to some other initiatives, just because the demand is so high. And so the work really has been done in the past by building our brand and reputation so that when companies are looking for reputable electrical contractors, we're on that list. And so for us, it's really about marketing ourselves to win the best work for the company because we are, as a subcontractor, our risk is in our labor. We have almost 1,500 electricians in the company, and the difficult task is having them all be productive and safe and doing work and contributing to the bottom line and not having downtime. And so it's really about finding the right work with the right customers, the right general contractors, the right owners in the right time frame to keep everything moving smoothly. And so that's really what we've been doing the last 6 months to a year. And all of that is in an account-based marketing format. We don't do mass marketing. So every situation is different. Every pitch is different, every interview is different, every proposal is different. It's a lot. It's really about, for the marketing side, it's about partnering with the sales team to understand what the customer needs, what's valuable to them, what do they care about in the situation, because you can't take what you did last time and apply it to this time because it's a different situation with a different profile.
I love ABM marketing. Thank you for bringing that into the conversation.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, account-based marketing, or ABM for short, as the cool kids call it, it is to me one of the most important things in the B2B space because it allows, nay, it forces us to be really focused and intentional with who we're going after. And it's almost like the opportunity to clone your best client and you try to replicate that scenario over and over again. And I think too many B2B marketers try to act like they're B2C. And B2C is good for the creative, thinking in terms of campaigns and really changing the message up so it's not too features based. But
Yeah.
B2C is a trick when you think everybody's your audience. And so ABM is very smart. Good job.
Well, I mean, I think it's personalized too, right? I mean, so when you're doing that, you're trying to, and that's where your creativity comes in. And I think it allows you to find creative solutions to have that message resonate with the people that you're talking to, right?
Yeah, and creativity comes into it. I am not a creative person, which is kind of weird for a marketer to say. But I'm analytics research focused, and so really what I bring to these situations is really an emphasis on let's understand what the customer is valuing or the potential client values. It's almost like you encapsulate the whole marketing process into one thing where you're doing a value proposition exercise. You're doing all these things that in a B2C setting you would do once, and then you would say, okay, we're gonna do all these campaigns for the next year based on this. And in ABM, you're doing that just for that one sale, and then you got to start the process over for the next one. So you can't do that unless you understand your customer. And marketing in construction, we're typically not forward, outward facing. I have some contacts, but really it's about aligning yourself with the sales and business development team because they're the ones that are out there networking and talking. And so you have to have a good relationship with that team and those people, and because they're going to be the ones that bring you the information that you need to market properly. And so if you don't have that, if you don't have a sales team that's working with you, you're just not gonna be effective in what you're doing.
Yeah, it's only as good as the lead coming in, right? And if you have a hot lead, or hey, I'm working on this particular client.
Yeah,
This is where we're at in the sales process. This is what I want to do, how I want to get us noticed,
yeah,
and then you can start to use tactics around that. Okay, well,
yeah,
what are we doing? Are we sending them something? Are we geofencing them? Are we? There's so many tools now at our disposal, which makes it a lot easier
yeah.
and harder. Easier
And,
because
and
there's
you,
more, but harder because which one do I use?
yeah, and even understanding things like what are their perceptions of us right now? Because it might be negative, and they might not have worked with us for 5 years, and the last job we did with them went south. Well, that changes the way we approach how we're selling to them versus a customer who we're doing two jobs with right now and they love us and we're their preferred contractor. Totally different situation for us to work in. So,
Yeah, 100%. Michael, I thought you were going to jump into when Matt said he's not creative, and I agreed. I've heard you say nice things about marketers who don't think of themselves as creative.
Well, no, I mean everybody's creative, and our
That's it.
definition of creative is, how do you solve problems? That's
yeah,
creativity, right? I mean, you may not be a writer per se, or a creative writer, or a designer, or whatnot, but if you can solve problems, man, that's where you get paid the big bucks, because I mean, it's so hard to. Are you talking about account-based marketing? That's tricky business. I mean, that's like you said, understanding perceptions, understanding your client, and we have a process called Razor Branding. It's based on that. It's the focus, promise, connection, harmony. It's the who, the why, the what, and where.
I love
And
that.
if you don't know the who, you're just guessing at that point. I mean, you have to start with that. You have to know who you're talking to. What are they about? What's going to motivate them? What are their needs? And then from there, everything else can roll out of it. But without that key step, I mean, what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. One of the things, Matt, you and I talked about previously was the challenges that you have around recruiting, because that's kind of a bottleneck to growth. So, how do you approach that as a marketing challenge? How do you work with the HR team the same way we've been talking about your work with the sales team, and really take these same marketing principles and apply that to attracting talent the way you attract customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would say that this relates to, Michael, your comment on creativities around problem solving. This is not a traditional marketing problem, recruiting, but I try really hard to position myself as a problem solver in the company. It doesn't matter what the problem is. If there's something that we need to figure out, I want to be a part of the conversation and hopefully can add value to it. And so this is one of those areas where we're recruiting journeyman electricians specifically. We have a whole kind of group of people we're trying to recruit, but approaching it with from a marketer's perspective is kind of a new concept for the recruiting team. The recruiters don't usually work in this space, so coming to them and saying, let's do some segmentation, let's do STP segmentation, target, let's position, let's do a value proposition exercise for each of these segments, and figure out what channels they're active in. Those are things that bringing that to the recruiting team is really valuable to them, and just really helps a small team do a lot of work. And that is the biggest bottleneck for our and pretty much any trade subcontractors growth right now in the area. There's just such a boom of work right now with data centers. If you're in that space, it's a tough space to be recruiting in right now, and so we're all kind of fighting tooth and nail to get the best people in the door.
Right.
What's the lifespan of a project when you go in for something? Let's say it's a hospital that's out of
Yeah.
state. How long are you guys on the ground with that? And are you sending people to that location for that, or are you trying
Yeah.
to sub out locally for that?
No, we are the sub, and so we are the
Mhm.
labor holders, and so what our customer in most of these situations is the general contractor, and they're the manager who may not have very many people on site. We're the people who have a ton of people on site in hard hats and vests doing the actual work. The job life cycle can be anywhere from a couple of months to a couple of years. We have some large work that will last 3+ years on one site, and some work that it's a campus and they will continue to add buildings onto it. And so we might be out at one site for 6 or 7 or 8 years doing different scopes of work because they're constantly adding on, renovating, retrofitting, and doing things like that. So it can be years long commitment. And at any given time, there could be 300 or 400 of our guys at one site if it's running hot and heavy at the
Wow.
peak of the manpower.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
So
don't
is
envy
that
the
part of
ops
the?
guys. They have a hard job.
I was about to say that's part of it, right? I mean, they have to find places to live during these times. They're probably working shifts and seven on, seven
Yeah,
off kind of situations, right?
it's tough. Yeah, like traditionally our work's been mostly local, and within kind of the confines of urban areas in the state. We've branched out to different areas when a good customer pulls us to different parts of the country. But really, the last few years is when we've started to do really a lot of heavy travel work. We call it twirl, tough work in remote locations. And
Ooh.
so our twirl portfolio is a bigger and bigger chunk of our revenue every year. And so we're going out to places that it's not like you're going to a different city, like you're going to Denver or you're going to LA. We're going out in the middle of nowhere, West Texas, to build a data center.
Yes.
And there's nothing out there. And so you're recruiting people to like, hey, come work for us. You're going to go out in the middle of nowhere for 2 years and work. And how do we make that attractive and make that something that they say that's worth my time for 2 years to go do? It's a tough challenge. And that sort of work is really the meat of the work happening right now and probably for the next few years in our market is that kind of very, very out in the weeds, rural mega job work where you're having hundreds or thousands of guys out there.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of oil and gas work, but it is in our area. We're in South Louisiana, and
Yep.
but in the past couple of years, we had clients that they were trying to recruit people to go to South Dakota
Mhm.
and it was like inhospitable. They showed videos during the winter, and you couldn't even
Yeah.
see because of the dust storms and the snow that was flying.
Yeah.
And it was a tough job trying to convince people that that was a good thing,
Yeah.
but it was, it was the Wild West out there. And so we kind of
Yep.
position it as for the adventurer type, that kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a tough sell sometimes.
It is, and it's there's opportunity, you'll get paid more for doing that kind of work versus local
Mhm.
work. But I mean, if you it's tough work. So if you know a tradesperson or meet a tradesperson, thank them. They are they are building the backbone of what we're doing with AI in this country and in other industries too. And
Yeah.
it's hard to do, and they're usually going out to really remote areas to do it. So they're really we should be all thankful for them.
And I'm
So
Right.
sure the work that you're doing too is incredibly like when people are making decisions on hiring you, your company, there's a lot in the line with that, I would assume, right? I mean, like
yep,
this is not something that, oh, if it doesn't go well, then this could
yeah.
cause huge problems down the line if it's not done right the first time. So there's a lot of ramifications, right? In that decision making process.
Yeah, and that goes into like when we do value proposition exercises or try to understand what the customer values. There are different things in every situation, but one of the core principles that is in every situation is risk aversion and don't make me look stupid,
Yeah.
because the person hiring, there's usually one person who makes the decision and a group of influencers. And that one person who says, we're going to go with Cummings Electrical, if we do not perform and the job gets delayed or they have to bring in someone else, which, does never happen with us, but that reflects on them. So they're hiring us saying, don't make me look stupid. And so that's a huge piece of that. Um, we're there. We're partly responsible for their own personal and professional reputation based on this decision, and that goes into how we market. We position ourselves as the most trusted person you could, or most trusted company you could bring in on this. So
Speaking of how you market, marketing is so visual. And so
yeah,
we're used to seeing lots of pretty pictures for social media, for web, for brochures, marketing materials, trade show booths, industry trade pub ads, whatever it might be. There's not a lot of pretty pictures around running electrical and making the lights come on.
oh, I disagree.
Tell me, that's what I want to know.
I'm biased because I'm in the industry, but a great a beautiful electrical room, or just a ton of conduit bends in a giant warehouse. That's beautiful, man. I love
Okay.
that stuff. And what's great about it is the people who hire us and the people that work in this space, when they know what they're looking at, and it's really cool or really big or really powerful, they get excited by that too. And so that goes back to, when I talked about, you have to rely on your sales team to tell you what's important to the customer. As a marketer in this space, I've been in construction marketing for almost 20 years, but I will never know as much as an engineer or someone
Right.
who that's their job. And so I have to rely on and have a good relationship with my operations people, because when I go shoot a video, I need someone there, another set of eyes to help me understand the best way to do it to get the message across we're trying to get across. And an ops person needs to be part of that. A safety person needs to be part of that. And so that goes back to relationships and building relationships internally in the company. I think in this ABM B2B space, in a field that's very technical, that's critical. Marketers are always going to be kind of the layman level of a knowledge, and so you need to rely on other people to help you fill in the gaps that you have.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. When you and I talked last time, you talked a lot about leading the Ocean team, focusing on finding those uncontested marketing spaces. So, how
Yeah.
do you identify which sectors to pursue? And obviously, it's been the data centers for a while now, but how do
Yeah.
you find the next big blue ocean place to start to plant your flag?
We have a formal, yeah, so the Blue Ocean team is a formal team. So we have a formal team, a formal process. um, for that. And it's kind of a blend of that formal analysis and process with gut checks from leadership in the company, people who've been in the company a long time. So our formal process really revolves around 5C analysis. The 5Cs are company, customers, competitors, collaborators, and context. Context is like regulation, economy. And so you look at every situation through the lens of the 5Cs, to determine if it's a good fit. And the C company, that's where relying on that kind of gut check from people that have been here a long time is important, because it might look on the outside or to someone like me like a good fit, but someone in the company will say, hey, that's really not, and this is why. So a good example of that is water wastewater plants. That
Hmm.
looked like a great market. I brought that idea like, hey, let's go because with every data center, with every manufacturing facility that uses a ton of water, it's a huge infrastructure problem here in Texas. We're spending tens of billions on it over the next decade. So why not get in on that? From all those points of view, it looks great.
Right.
But then talking to people who've been here, it's like, hey, we've tried that and it doesn't work, and this is why, and they laid out the reasons why it's not a good fit for us. It's like, okay, well then that's a no-go. And that's it's a combination of kind of hardcore analysis and then also like just hey tribal knowledge. What do people know? What do people know has worked? And just because it hasn't worked in the past doesn't mean it's a no-go. Maybe it didn't work then, but it could work now.
Right.
But you have to do this collaboratively with the other leaders in the company. There's a saying that my boss taught me in my last company. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so Blue Ocean is all about going far. And so it's half of it's about creating buy-in with other executives at the company to say, hey, we really want to go do this. We're all in on this. We all support it. Because if only a couple people want to do it, it will fail.
Right.
Even if it's a good market, you need everyone to be in support of it, pointing resources in that direction.
100%. And I love that. And I think enough companies don't think that way. And so, just for everybody listening, I want the highlights that you take away from what Matt said is it's multidisciplinary. Multiple people from different departments and divisions form this Blue Ocean team together. There are people who bring industry knowledge to say, ooh, we've gone down that path before that didn't work really well, so it can be discussed. There's a criteria of judgment. So whether you use a BANT score or your 5 Cs or whatever the different criteria is, you've got to have a criteria. You've got to
Yeah.
look at budget and authority and need and timing and fit and all those pieces. And then you can follow the ABM model of, do we have expertise in this area? Do we have a perfect match? Well, let's go find the duplicates.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point, we have the Blue Ocean team. We have one for construction and one for integrated manufacturing. Each one has almost a dozen people in it. And it's a lot. We try to have as much department representation as we can, just because somebody's going to have a perspective that the rest of us don't. And so these decisions are so important and so big and require so many resources. We want to have enough people in the room to make sure we're making the best decision without overloading the room and making it, too
Right.
cumbersome to make a decision. So.
Right. No, for sure. And I love that. And so obviously the opposite of blue ocean is a red ocean. So how do you avoid the red oceans?
Ooh, red ocean. Well, so every blue ocean will turn into a red ocean.
Mm-hmm.
That's just that's the nature of business. Well, like whatever's hot, people are going to flock to it. You're going to have more suppliers. So avoiding the red ocean is sort of it's a art and a science. Some of the indicators we will start to see on the pre-construction and estimating side when things become more price driven because there's more competition, we start to evaluate it. But what I do for the Blue Ocean team is I'm evaluating our current markets all the time, and like a great leading indicator for a subcontractor like us is the Architectural Billing Index. That's something the AIA group does. That's an architectural industry trade group. And architects on the construction life cycle are a good 6 to 24 months ahead of us, ahead of a subcontractor in terms of how project progression happens. And so if they're seeing a downturn in commercial real estate, well, then we could probably be pretty confident we're going to see a downturn 6 to 24 months from now. And so the current downturn in commercial real estate, office buildings, and that sort of thing really has stemmed from interest rates. Those projects get built with borrowed money, and borrowed money is all based on interest rates. Is money expensive to borrow, or is it cheap to borrow?
Right.
It's been incredibly cheap for a decade. Interest rates were pretty much at zero
Right.
during the 20 teens, and so that market boomed. And then as interest rates crept up to deal with inflation, more and more people said, not a good idea to build right now because that project's now going to cost a lot more money. And even a little incremental changes in the interest rate have massive ramifications. Think about, home ownership and getting a mortgage at 3% versus 7%. Your mortgage cost every month is astronomically different.
Right.
And so when we see those leading indicator things happening, we will start to be aware of, hey, this space is going to probably turn off sometime soon or get real low. And then the next question is, where do we pivot? What do we go to?
Hmm.
Because the answer to red ocean is simply get out.
Right.
But then we're as a labor contractor, we've got people, so we can't just get out and say, oh, we'll have a down year. We don't want layoffs. We don't do layoffs. We don't have temp labor. We need to find work for those guys. So it's about pivoting to the next blue ocean. So.
And so that sets up the way that y'all approach it in terms of looking ahead, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years to say these are going to be our blue oceans. We've got to
Yeah.
start working on having a presence there. And that's why the ABM, I think, is so smart.
Yeah, that's what we have part of our Blue Ocean teams. We have our pre-construction leaders, our estimating leaders. So we've got our chief estimator, Logan Rankin, and our VP of Precon, Jerry Biggie, and those two guys are instrumental in this because it's like once we pick something, it's up to those guys to send their teams out. We got to start building relationships, even if we know they're not going to. This is a very long cycle business, so we know maybe this doesn't pay off till 2027
Right.
or 2028. But we need to start putting the work in now and spending time, resources, money on getting those relationships and positioning ourselves now so that when the turn happens, we're not scrambling and behind. We're
Right.
one of the leaders who are moving into that space. And we did that. I'm very proud to say our company did that with data centers. We saw this coming. I'm not going to say we saw this coming, but we knew data centers were going to be a bigger thing before it started coming. And we started building relationships in those spaces. And that way, we're seeing other electrical contractors now struggling to break into this because they don't have the resume, they don't have the relationships. And we're going to see that pivot again, and hopefully we'll be ready. So,
I love that.
I
And
know,
so,
I'm sorry, Jack. On that note, like the market obviously has changed. It continues to change every day or every year, but has your industry changed dramatically in the past 10 years? Like as far as the work that you're doing, is the data centers a different type of work? Is it something that you have to stay on the constant growth with to kind of keep up with new technology?
yeah, different projects require a little bit different expertise and experience. For most of commercial or industrial electrical work, there's a lot of carryover knowledge that happens. There's some stuff like if we're doing substations or high voltage, that's very specific crews that do that. But what's changed is really from the leadership level, how do we do this work and manage our own risk? Because it used to be we'll send 50 guys out and it's a $10 million job and we'll be out there for 8 months. And now it's a $400 million job and we're going to be out there for 3 years and we're going to have hundreds of guys out there. How do you stack the job and have oversight and leadership throughout all of that? So stacking the job and manning it up and being productive, being safe, having good quality work all, at the same time, those are all massive challenges that you're still doing the same thing, but it's like building a house versus building a stadium. It's a scale that's completely different. So that's been a big challenge, and we've seen mega jobs become more and more a bigger piece of the market over the last 10 years than before. Mega jobs are they're good and they're bad. They're great because it's a huge chunk of money in one contract, but it's a lot of risk tied up in one customer. It's a lot of risk with a lot of labor tied up in one job site. And so those are the that's the way that the industry really has changed in the last, I would say, 10 years. And then just keeping on top of new technology like we all do in every aspect of our work.
for sure. And so, as you think about, and I'm going to go back to the pretty pictures just for a minute. I think you make a fair point. I rescind the original completely offensive question about electrical not being as pretty as other things.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. No, my bad. This is why we do this. This is how I get smarter about my job. But so when you think about the different marketing tactics that you employ, what has been successful for you? Are you feeling a resurgence of direct mail? Are you digging on email? Is it trade shows? What have been the winning pieces that really make you say, this is a metric I can't wait to report on?
Yeah. The that's tough. I don't know if it's a metric, but it's still as much as it's changed, it's still the same in that it's a relationship-based business. And that's the difference. You talk about B2C with account based. With B2C, they're buying a product or they're buying a company.
Right.
With B2B and especially specifically with account based B2B, they're buying really a team or a person.
Hmm.
So many of the decisions, even $100 million decisions, come down to an interview where they're in a room with someone and they're looking across at a project executive and they say, okay, I can trust this person with this money. I think this person's going to take care of it and take care of me and make me look good. And so the stuff that works is still the stuff that connects people. So we're still doing a lot of trade shows. We do a lot of connection events. Like we have a lot of ranches where we take people out to go hunt, go fish, camp out and do stuff like that where they can build rapport together. Something that I did on the marketing side, which was a small thing and now it's become a really cool thing, is I created a pick'em league for the NFL because a lot of our people are just big sports fans. And so with some of our best customers, we invite them in. It's invite only. We invite them into a pick'em league where every week these guys are competing against each other and picking winners and losers in the NFL. And there's a lot of smack talk with each other, and the winner gets a pretty cool prize at the end. But really, it's just about creating connections and memories. Where when we go meet them for the next lunch, we could talk about what a great week or tough week they had in the Pick'em League. And so, marketing is really about helping enable those connections happen, bringing people together, and helping the sales team go out and build relationships.
Right.
Do you
Right.
have to pull somebody aside and be like, "Hey, Jim, I need you to throw this
Yeah.
one."
Take a dive.
Yeah. No, it's funny though. We've been very fortunate. The winners of the league so far, this is our third or fourth year doing it, have always been really high value customers. So it's like I haven't planned it out this way, but every year the winner who we get to go out and like bring the prize to, do a little photo op and thing, it's always been someone a very valuable client to us. So it's worked out really well.
Weird how that works, that the most
Yeah,
valuable clients win most often. Michael, your question
yeah.
may be relevant.
Oh, I don't know. Everybody I know that plays those kind of games, they do not
Well,
throw things.
if I if
It's
I could
serious for everybody.
control, yeah, if I could control the outcome of NFL games, I'd be winning a lot of
Oh,
money in Vegas and
yeah,
retired. So
for sure, for sure. And not to derail this conversation, but what about those idiots that were throwing pitches?
what?
Like I was shocked by this. I read an article about it,
Oh,
and they're like pitch, like one pitch in a series they would throw a ball intentionally and somebody would win $50,000 $60,000 on it, and the player whose entire career is now in jeopardy gets like 5 grand.
yeah,
And I'm thinking,
yeah.
dude, you're paid millions of dollars, why you need $5,000?
Yeah, yeah. There's that, and there's some NFL or NBA scandals with
Oh
players
yeah,
doing stuff. So yeah, just stay on the right side of the law.
very helpful. For sure, for sure, for sure. So when your customers are other businesses in construction, how do you
Mhm.
communicate value beyond price? What works best for differentiating in a field that's often seen as so commodity based?
Sure, yeah. That's our biggest probably mission is push away from being a commodity. Every day that's the challenge. And really the the value we bring is in the people and the expertise, or the expertise and that resides in the minds of the people doing the work. And so really we're selling the team, we're selling their expertise and experience. And that's what it always points back to. The most critical part of the proposals we build, the interviews we do, it's about promoting that team. It's not about the processes and the tools. Everyone has the same stuff that they use. It's really about, okay, this team has done this before, has done it successfully. You can rest assured that the project's in good hands. If anything unforeseen happens, which always does with construction, if you've ever renovated a room in your house or
Oh
something, you know
yes.
that there's always unexpected things. So when that comes up, is this the project team that's going to handle that the best and allow me to focus on what I need to do as the owner? Or am I going to have to step in and handle it because they're not doing it or they're nickel and diming me on contracts and things like that? So really, it's the way you avoid being a commodity is you show the value in the people you're bringing to that project site.
Yeah. No, I think that's smart. Man, I think the value is what it's all about because you don't want to have to go fight on price. And so it's going to be one
Yep.
or the other. So you got to figure that out. I
Yep.
know when you had your first marketing role, kind of back in 2010, it's kind of a learning curve. You and your CEO
Yeah.
didn't really know what to do with each other. How did that early experience shape the way you approach leadership and marketing now?
Yeah, that role, that the first few years there were really formative for me. I kind of fell into this space just because of the Great Recession. If any of you are old enough to remember what it was like in 2008, 2009, 2010. It was pretty rough, hard to find a job, especially for a new grad. Um, but some of the lessons I learned, both from learning the right way to do things and learning what not to do from people who were doing things the wrong way, was um, a lot to do with really leadership and people management. Some things I've taken away from that are, so always assume good intentions. If you always assume good intentions when you're working with people, it's so much easier to get along with them. And we judge ourselves when we do things by our intentions. So if you offend somebody or do something wrong, you're like, well, I didn't mean to. But then when someone else does something, it's like, well, you're judging them based on the results. So flip that around, and if somebody messes up or does something, judge them based on their intentions. They probably didn't mean to do that.
Right.
And if you approach relationships with that way, you'll end up being a lot happier and having a lot less stress because you won't feel like everyone's out to get you all the time.
Right.
Um, and then a good leader always takes more than their share of the blame when something goes wrong and less than their share of the credit when something goes right. And I've had really good leaders in my career, including right now at Cummings, my president, Nathan Bubella, who they just live that. Whenever something goes well, they're always putting their team out in front and showering them with praise and rewards. And when something goes south, they're the first ones to say, "Okay, I'm going to step in. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to take responsibility." Um, and that's something that if you do that enough, you will have people who want to be around you and work with you.
Yeah.
And then the last thing with people management is allowing your team to learn by failure. So I've got some young team members. You tend to have younger team members in entry level roles, and letting them grow by doing and failing is the fastest way to get them to grow and expand their skill set. Um, Too many people in management tend to micromanage because they don't want people under them to mess up. Well, the best way we've all learned, if you look back on your own career, the biggest lessons we've learned have been because of a mistake you made or something you didn't do right, and then you learned and corrected it. And so I've had really good bosses who have taught me, yeah, they're going to let me try and fail in a safe way, not in a way that harms the company, but do that in a space that lets me do that safely, and then learn from myself what I did wrong and correct it and do it better next time.
100%. You got to take the blame and give the credit, and you've got to give people a chance to learn and grow. And I think that's something that every leader struggles with is the thought that, well, I'll just do it myself because it'll be faster, or I'll just do it myself because I know how to do it, but then no one else learns.
Yeah, that's micromanagement. That's why people like
Yes.
when you talk about micromanagement, that's really people don't become micromanagers because they want to be a micromanager. They do that because they're afraid of letting their people mess up.
Yeah.
Anybody who's in management or leadership position, they're put there because they're good at the core job. But
Right.
when you're in leadership, your role is not to do that anymore. It's to lead teams. And so if you're still doing the day to day, you're not doing your job. Your job should be leading.
Agree.
How
100%.
how big is your team? How many people work with you on a day-to-day
Four
basis?
right now. Four right now. I've had as much as six, but in marketing and construction, that's a pretty big team. There are a lot. The majority of companies I would say that I work with, their department is a department of one, which is its own massive challenge. But I'm very lucky to be at Cummings, where marketing is valued. And a lot of companies don't value their marketing, and specifically a lot of construction companies don't value marketing. And Cummings really does, and they really open up what marketing is. It's not just, hey, go make things pretty. Marketing is market research and intelligence, and all sorts of things, recruiting. It's all sorts of things around growing the business. And so because of the value placed on it, we get to have bigger teams than normal over here. because they're seen as value added and not just empty overhead. So I'm very, very blessed and very grateful for that.
What metrics do y'all monitor and how do you report on that to really show ROI and earn that level of trust and respect?
So a lot of that points back to, win rates and capture rates on the leads we've got coming in. We do, you've got top of the funnel activities with lead gen, which is less of what we do, but more about when something is getting closer to close, what's our close rate on the really targeted opportunities that we really want to get? We feel bad if we mess out on.
Right.
And so as long as we're hitting our numbers on those and hitting our marks and improving, the best way to measure those things is to look at trends. So many of the numbers they're just kind of arbitrary. Like if you were talking to a company and they'd say, well, our hit rate's 30%, our hit rate's 50%. That's less important than it is to see, is it going, what's the trend look like? Because if you're trending down, that means you need to course correct. If you're trending upward, you're doing well, you need to continue doing what you're doing. And so coming into this company in 2022, it's really just been about creating some benchmarks and making sure we're showing that we're improving in those areas year over year and making strides.
Yeah. Which, going back to the crux of it all with the relationships and the way that you're gearing so many personal touches and really getting to know people, how does marketing get credit for the relationships that the sales team builds that turn into the jobs? Where do you insert yourself along the way to make sure you're supporting their efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't push myself in to get credit for those things.
I didn't mean that in a like take credit way. I meant in a how do you support, how do you help, how do you track it?
Track it. That's a tough one. I don't know of a great way of tracking that. And so I will say I don't have an answer for that. What I can tell you is um, that works in our situation because we have a leadership that understands the value of what we're doing and works with us every day. And so they see it. I don't have to go and sell it and go and I previous places, half of my job felt like reporting and tracking, and that sucked because I'm a marketer and I like 6 hours every day was spent on just like getting numbers ready to go show out a quarterly report to justify our team's existence, which is a non-value added exercise and just was painful. And here at Cummings, it's more about it's less of the reporting out and more of doing the actual work. And so these our sales and pre-con teams are pretty lean and small, and so they see us every day. We're in the office every day. We're not remote. We have flexibility, but being in the trenches with them every day, they know that we're adding value to that process. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Matt, this has been everything I hoped for and more. I appreciate you sharing your time and your knowledge and your wisdom and your experience and your vision. This is what B2B marketing should be about. And I think so many people miss it because either they didn't come up through the ranks like you did, kind of figuring it out as you go, or they're still kind of caught up in a B2C mindset, or they got to a company that didn't have a process and they didn't know how to build one. And so I think this is the kind of stuff that helps people figure out how to do their jobs better. So thank you.
absolutely happy to do it.
All right, great. And we'll be sure to put in the show notes exactly how people can find you so they can follow you on LinkedIn and obsessively stalk you like I do. And and be able to watch the work that you're doing for Cummings because I think it's really good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I had a great time talking with you guys.
Thank you.
What am I to do when the day is through?